Hi, I'm Martina Nankavella, psychiatric physician assistant and an ADHD expert and coach for career women with ADHD symptoms. I started ADHD Wonder Woman coaching as it's my passion and lifelong mission to help career women really deep dive and get to thriving with their ADHD, and not just a little bit better, but really needle changing and needle moving so that you can thrive now with your ADHD. So today we're going to talk about an exciting topic: perfectionism and ADHD. I think when we first, as ADHDers, think of perfectionism, it's like, that doesn't pertain to me. I'm not a perfectionist, but just wait, let's talk. And at the end of the talk, let's decide if you feel like you have perfectionistic tendencies or not. So I'm going to go a little bit back into why ADHDers have more propensity or more chances or risk of having having perfectionist tendencies, and then what do perfectionist tendencies look like, and then 13 tried and true ways to work on overcoming and moving through and past perfectionist tendencies. So let's do this. So perfectionism is an unhealthy obsession with flawlessness that causes you to be overly harsh on yourself, unrealistic personal standards on yourself or others, comparing yourselves to others, and ultimately never really feeling quite good enough. The difference between perfectionism and trying to work and strive for your best is that perfectionism is not about healthy achievements or growth, versus striving for your best is about healthy achievements and growth. So interestingly enough, the American Psychological Association states that perfectionism is the tendency to demand of others or on oneself an extreme high or even flawless level of performance above and beyond what is required by the situation. Above and beyond what is required by the situation. I think that's the take home. That's how the American Psychological Association defines perfectionism. For some with ADHD, perfectionism is a psychological overcompensation for past ADHD related errors or feelings of inferiority. Let that sink in for a moment. Secondly, for others, it is a form of self-punishment or even procrastination. Perfectionism often stems from incorrectly estimating how long things will take, misunderstanding what needs to get done and how to get it done, and the ability to access the resources needed in the time being. Does that sound like classic issues ADHDers struggle with? Time blindness, not really sure exactly how long and how much time is needed for something, not having all the tools in place, not knowing where to get everything, feeling overwhelmed, pushing it away, right? So at the end of the day, perfectionism has to do with anxiety. So we're anxious about something, about failing ourselves or failing others. So if we have perfectionistic traits, we really need to think about, do we have anxiety or anxious traits that are not well managed or we're not aware of? Studies say that ADHDers have a really high chance of some other mood disorder or some psychiatric condition. For anxiety, it's almost 50%. That's really high. So someone formally diagnosed with ADHD has almost or about 50% chance that they're going to have some form of anxiety diagnosis, diagnosed or not diagnosed yet in their life, that they also need to be aware of and work on. So what can perfectionist tendencies look like? So here are some examples: all or nothing thinking, a fixed or rigid mindset, setting unrealistic standards, negative comparisons or never feeling good enough, self-criticism, negative self-talk, living by shoulds. I should have done that. I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that way. I shouldn't. Procrastination, to avoid failure or discomfort. Perfectionists often delay starting or accomplishing tasks because they're worried about what others might think about it, etc., etc. Fear or reluctance to ask for help. That's another thing or way that perfectionism can look like. Easily discouraged due to incomplete or imperfect results. Fear of social rejection. Rechecking your work over and over again excessively. Spending a prolonged amount of time on a task that doesn't need that much time. Experiencing ADHD paralysis. And having difficulty moving forward with the decision when you don't really know or you don't want to make a mistake. Feeling extremely discouraged when you're met by challenges or setbacks. Dealing with a lot of negative self-talk or criticism. Believing you don't deserve compliments. I think that's a big one. That ties into perfectionism. Interesting, huh? So there are three main types of perfectionism. Perfectionism on yourself. So I'm holding myself to unrealistic standards or expectations. The second form of perfectionism is I think others are looking at me and holding me to high expectations, and I don't want to let them down, or I don't want to look lame or dumb in front of them. So I think I'm making it in my mind to be that others are holding these unrealistic expectations on me. So then I feel like I need to abide by these unrealistic perfectionist tendencies or levels. The other one is other-oriented perfectionism. That's the third type, where you hold harsh and unrealistic expectations on other people. So you hold unrealistic expectations of yourself. You think others are holding unrealistic expectations of you, so that drives you to act a certain way. Or you're holding unrealistic expectations, harsh, unrealistic expectations on others. So what do we do about this? So there are 13 tools and techniques, strategies that I'm going to review now that help us stray away from and go from those perfectionist tendencies that we might have known or now are becoming aware of that we have, and what we could do differently, and how as ADHDers we might be more prone to these ADHD perfectionist things, or we've been successful in life with ADHD because we've held on to these perfectionist tendencies. But just because we do it naturally doesn't necessarily mean it's helpful or healthy. So here are some ways we can start transitioning out of that into a healthier, a more appropriate place. So the first one is build awareness. So practice mindfulness. Be in the moment. Be aware of your thoughts. Be aware, are your thoughts judgmental? Approach your thoughts and let things come into mind with a more neutral stance, non-judgmental. Being more mindful and aware. A lot of times subconsciously we're being perfectionistic. So being in the moment, being more aware of what we're doing, what we're thinking, why we're thinking of it that way. Are we approaching it with a neutral standpoint or not? That can help us see if we're being perfectionistic in those tendencies. You can also write out and say to yourself positive self-talk to build better awareness. So for example, you can write out and say out loud in the mirror something like, I'm trying my best and sometimes it doesn't work out. We all make mistakes, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Number 2 is shift your focus. Pay attention to what is working instead of what isn't working. We're not very good at that, right? We hone in on the bad. We hone in on the one bad comment. We hone in on the things that aren't working, even though maybe 1 or 2 things isn't working, but we have 10 or 20 things that are working in our life, right? Or are going well. So recalibrate and readjust that thinking. What is going well instead of just always fixating on what is not going well. Avoid compare and despair. Number 3 is avoid mistakes. I'm sorry, not avoid mistakes because we can't do that. Number 3 is accept mistakes. Accept that we are going to make mistakes. Accept that we are all human. Accept that successful, effective, and efficient people make mistakes. Accept that it's part of life and normal and what makes you human. And be okay with that. Practice self-compassion. Be kinder to yourself. Say more words of affirmation. I am smart. I am hardworking. I am good at my job. Say these things out loud in the mirror to yourself until you start really believing them. Words of affirmation, self-affirmation. Number 4, receive feedback with grace. A lot of us aren't very good at receiving feedback, or if it's negative, we are really harsh on ourselves or hold ourselves to high standards because someone didn't think something was right or perfect. Well, no one's going to think everything is right and perfect, right? So try to approach self-criticism with a more open mind and remembering, yes, we want to try our hardest and keep ourselves to high standards, but is this realistic or not? So something that can be helpful is if I wouldn't say those exact words to friends and family I care about, then why am I saying it to myself? So maybe I'm saying, I'm a failure, I'm incompetent, I'm stupid, I can't get my stuff together, I'm never going to be successful at work. Would you tell your best friend or your mom or your sister that? You suck, you're not good at your job, you're never going to be good, you're never going to get an advancement. We're probably not going to use that extreme language with them, or maybe we shouldn't. So we're not going to use that extreme language with them. Why am I allowing myself to use it with myself? To push myself down, push myself down, push myself down, hold myself to unrealistic and perfectionist tendencies. Instead, you might say, sister, best friend, I'm sorry that didn't work out, or I'm sorry that job wasn't a good fit, or I'm sorry that didn't go as planned, or you weren't successful with that. But, think back to other things you are successful in currently in life, or think back to other jobs you've been good at. So similarly, instead of telling yourself you suck, why couldn't you get your stuff together? Like, why can't you perform effectively and efficiently like other people? Say, okay, maybe this isn't the right fit for me, or I tried my best, or just because this didn't succeed or this job didn't work out, I don't always suck, or I'm not 100% failure. I've held other jobs before, I have good relationships in my life, etc., etc. Set realistic goals for yourself. Are your goals unrealistic? Let's be honest with ourselves. A lot of times they are, especially for ADHDers, because we've gotten to our level of success in life by compensating in other ways where our ADHD is not well managed. So that often compensates in perfectionist or too high of expectation tendencies for ourselves. So setting more realistic examples. Set limits if you're unsure about meeting a requirement. So set limits about meeting requests. Are you consistently moving the goalpost when you meet the goal? So what do ADHDers, what are we good at? What are successful people good at? Entrepreneurial ADHD women good at? Okay, this is the goal. Then we reach the goal. Instead of patting ourselves on the back, then we just push the goalpost. Now let's get this. And now let's achieve this. Now let's work towards this. We never acknowledge and pat ourselves on the back and reward ourselves for what we did well, what we succeeded on. We're just next thing, higher, bigger, better, and it's definitely a slippery slope. Okay, practice self-affirmation, number 7, we talked about that one. Another one is improve executive function skills tied to perfectionism. So by working on executive function skills such as time management, organization, planning and prioritization, emotional control, all things we talk about in other YouTube videos and we dive deeply into in my ADHD Wonder Woman coaching program. By working on all those executive functioning things, we're going to work on our perfectionist tendencies as well. Counterbalance negative thoughts with positive thoughts. So if a negative thought comes into mind like, Susan must think I'm a failure. Okay, well, first of all, is that grounded or is there proof in the pudding for that? But second of all, if you feel like Susan thinks you're a failure, what does Susan also think? Probably Susan also thinks some good things of you. Or in a situation, just don't focus on the negative. Find that balance in the good and the bad. Balancing with the negative with the positive. If you're thinking about the one failure you did, also think of the one success you did, or 5 successes you did for the one failure. Don't dismiss praise. We're really good at that, right? Women, we're really good at that. Oh, it went well because such and such pitched in. Oh, it was just an accident. Oh, I was lucky. Things like that. Instead of saying thank you or acknowledging it or taking that affirmation or taking that praise, we push it off. We don't accept it. We don't acknowledge it. We don't think it's truth. That is not helpful for perfectionist tendencies. Embrace a less than perfect first draft. Some people say it as embrace a shitty first draft, excuse my language. So sometimes perfectionist tendencies hold us back from getting started. We want it to be perfect the first time. So we don't start because we don't want to fail at it the first time. Start somewhere. If you're writing a book, start writing a chapter. Even if it's bad, just start doing something. Start preparing the PowerPoint. Start writing bullet points for the lecture or the lesson you need to teach. Start somewhere. It doesn't mean you have to use it. But oftentimes once we start getting things down on paper, then we can go back. And then it's easier to keep going. And then it's also easier to then come back and say, okay, that first 15 bullet points is all bad. Let's throw that out and continue on. But I have another 15 bullet points under that are pretty good to work with. Or what can I glean or what can I take from the first things that were good? It's probably not all bad. It's just starting is bad, right? So a little tip or tweak on that for ADHDers is when you're if the starting is the hard part for me, then in your calendar put, I'm going to start X, Y, and Z for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, some really small 15 minutes window of time. I'm going to start preparing for my next YouTube video and I'm going to spend 5 minutes on it, right? So, okay, 5 minutes. I can find 5 minutes. At 4 p.m. tomorrow, I'm going to work on it for 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. I can do it. Write down something. Write down anything. Get started. Then in your calendar and on your planner the next time, change it from start planning for next YouTube video to say continue planning, right? So sometimes in the head, just changing it and seeing a continue versus a start is all we need to get going and that momentum going, versus the start seems overwhelming. It's a blank slate. It's a blank Word document. I don't know what to start and I don't want to do it wrong. So just start and just commit to 5 or 10, 15 minutes, something. And then next time it's continue until you feel like you could hopefully finish it the next time. Then on your calendar, finish. and then give yourself an appropriate, not too long, appropriate time frame to finish this in, and then really try to keep to that time limit to finish it in. So that's a little hack that is helpful for a lot of us to just kind of work on the brain, the start, continue, and finish, so that we don't get overwhelmed by the start and we also don't get overwhelmed by the finish. Say, today I'm gonna finish prepping for my YouTube video in 15 minutes or 30 minutes, because if not, what is gonna happen? I could probably spend 2 more hours researching and thinking about what to talk about and how to present it best. But is that necessary? Is that most effective and efficient? Am I being perfectionist in my tendencies? Alrighty, back to the perfectionist ways we can improve things. Focus on the positives in others, right? We often say, oh, my spouse is bad at that. Oh, my kid does that wrong. But do we focus on the good too? Focus on the good. Get used to that balanced mindset. That will help perfectionist tendencies. Put limited time on your work, like we just talked about. Practice time boxing. We do that a lot in our ADHD coaching program. Limit your time. You know, if you've spent a lot of time and what you're doing is pretty good or it's good enough, then say, hey, I'm going to finish this up in 15, 30 minutes, and really try to hold yourself accountable to that, so that you're not going 2, 4, 6 more hours on something that's just not needed, and it's overkill, and it's perfectionist tendencies now, and it's fear of failure, fear of what other people will think, more so than, you know, just getting out a good, viable product. The last thing to do is keep a praise file for when your doubt and overwhelm creeps in. Keep somewhere written, like an email or a Word document or something, of praise. Keep a file of praise. Like, what have people said to you in the past? Martina, you're a really hard worker. Martina, you're a go-getter. Martina, you think outside the box. Whatever people tell you, write it down. So then when you're discouraged, when the gray, glooming cloud of despair and perfectionism is over you, pull out your little list and say, okay, I don't suck. I'm not a failure all the time. Look, someone thought I was cool once, or someone had faith in me before, or someone said these good things about me. Pull it out for a rainy day. We need that, and it's helpful. So those are 13 techniques to work on our perfectionist tendencies. And then I just wanted to end it with a few little quotes that I thought were cool and something nice to think about. So this quote says, success is loving life and daring to live it. Success is loving life and daring to live it. If we have too much perfectionist tendencies ruling in our life, we're not going to dare to live life, and we're not going to love it probably, because we're too scared of results or what people are going to think. That quote is from Maya Angelou. The second quote is from Oscar Wilde. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. Am I existing? Am I just getting by? Am I okay with just existing? Am I cool with settling for okay or good enough? A lot of us are. Is that okay? Is that what I want? Do I want to just exist? How can I thrive? How can I get my perfectionist tendencies under control so I can thrive and really live and love life? Maybe we need an ADHD coach, someone to work with, have accountability, to have community with, to have resources, to figure out a personalized approach of what actually works and how to get it to stick so that you can thrive with your ADHD. That's what I'm all about, right? In my ADHD coaching program, I'm passionate about working with a small handful of women to really get the needle moving, to get them thriving and in control of their life in ADHD. I don't want you just to exist anymore. I don't want you to just try to get through the day, which a lot of ADHDers are doing. I want you to thrive. I want you to be alive. I want you to live to your fullest. Live your best life now. Love your life. So I love that quote. Be free and live life fully. Carolyn Shaw. Be free. What do we need to be free from? Do we need to be free from our perfectionist tendencies, our anxiety tendencies, our ADHD tendencies? What do I need to become free from, and how am I going to do that so that I can live a life fully? Some good things to think about, right? Good things to think about for me too. Hope this was exciting. Hope this was insightful. Hope this got the wheels turning in your brain. Hopefully you can pick something to transition to do differently to cut back on perfectionist tendencies, and maybe this opened your eyes to, maybe I do have perfectionist tendencies that I didn't know existed or I didn't want to admit to before. Wow, where is this holding me back in my life, and what do I need to do to change that today? All right, thanks. That's it for today.